Hello and welcome to the very first episode of Beyond the Screen with myself, Rob Taylor, writer, film, television journalist, joined by my co-host Emma Arneil, fellow writer and horror cinema aficionado. On a monthly basis we will be talking horror cinema and television, and tonight we begin with our own For the Love of Horror. Hello, welcome to Beyond the Screen. This is the first episode of hopefully an ongoing series of podcasts. Myself, Robert Taylor, and my co-host Emma Arneil. And we're both horror fans, horror cinema fans, and have grown up with horror in our lives. These podcasts are very much about our own analysis of the films and love of the films that we are going to talk about. But to begin with, we thought we might introduce ourselves and why we're doing this and what the passion behind it and why horror. So, Emma, yourself, you've been a horror fan since a long time ago.
Yeah. Since it must be toddler. It must be kind of toddler. Yeah. So for as long as I can remember, it's definitely been a huge passion of mine. And you were a tot as well,
I
weren't
was
you?
a tot, yeah, same here. Yeah, I think I can trace this back to 1984, which is a bizarre thing to remember. But I mean, I'll maybe go into that in a little bit. But yeah, it's always been around, and I think it possibly. I mean, I can't. Do you know? I've always tried to think really hard about where the genesis of the interest of horror came in about. But I can't. That's. I mean, it must be in my brain locked away somewhere, but I don't know what was the first attraction and how did I first become aware of vampires. And I'm saying vampires and creatures because 28th of December 1984, the BBC showed a double bill of The Curse of Frankenstein and Dracula, the two Hammer films, which obviously themselves started the Gothic run of Hammer, and their success from the 50s right through to the mid to late 70s. Yeah, I remember vividly, that being advertised and being excited about it, but I can't remember why I knew about Dracula. There must have been something.
I think Dracula's he is one of those horror characters that I think are accessible to children. Obviously, you've got the Count in Sesame Street, and we had Count Dracula and things like that. Obviously,
Yeah.
kids don't have that now, but he does seem to be a kind of gateway.
Yeah.
He's a gateway horror.
Well, it was interesting because it wasn't long ago we were talking and you brought up that Ladybird book of Dracula and the sort of, Ladybird horror classics that I think came out in the early 80s, and they illustrated abridged stories for children. And I remember having that book at a very young age. And I can even remember buying it from a stall. I remember Dracula sitting up from his coffin, and I think it was Van Helsing kind of over him with a stake in his hand, and it's, I kind of remember that. So I don't know if that was prior to seeing the double bill that I'm talking about, but I remember wanting to stay up for the double bill, and I was very much not allowed to. And I even remember that my sister still is a whodunit fan, and she was watching Miss Marple with Joan Hickson. Which was on before this double bill was coming up, and I remember kind of trying to sneakily join my sister to watch the rest of Miss Marple, and I even believe, I think it was Murder in the Library was the episode of Miss Marple.
Oh.
I don't know how I'm recalling this stuff. I might even be making it up. I don't know.
Yeah.
That is very much, and I remember going to bed with disappointment, having not, I was told it would be recorded for me on our rented Radio Rentals VHS recorder that we had. Such was the time, and the next morning picking my mother up from her night shift early, about 6 in the morning, and then me going back home and being allowed to to sit and watch The Curse of Frankenstein, which was the first of the two double bills whilst my mum slept and my dad went to work.
And can you remember any kind of initial feelings, or did
I
it?
I remember the guillotine going up, the sort of silhouette of the guillotine going up at the end of Curse of Frankenstein. And I think that was my first. I think Dad must have still been around in the room because I asked him. And he just, sort of said, "Oh, what's that?" And he said, "Oh, that's the thing that chops people's heads off." Um, and I
Just like
remember
that.
that sort of graphic. I just sort of seeing the slant of the blade going up, and just, oh right, God, right. So someone puts their head in that, and it, and I remember that sticking with me. But then it wasn't till Dracula, and I remember the opening credits of Dracula, which is famous. It's got the big James Bernard score, and ba ba and just the castle, the eagle, this panning shot of the castle, and eventually going down to the crypt, to Dracula's casket, and then the blood being kind of thrown onto the name of Dracula on this casket, and I remember that being quite scary, and I remember Christopher Lee being quite frightening. I remember Christopher Lee standing at the bedroom window of Lucy's bedroom.
Yes.
And that sort of, I think his eyes are, or his kind of the top half of his face is quite lit. He's got that very stern Christopher Lee look that he has, and
Mhm.
and yes, so I do, yeah. That's my first kind of memories of it. I remember Peter Cushing being someone I felt safe around. Because he was a very kind of kindly person in that film. He was almost like
Mhm.
a nice uncle, and I remember that sort of feeling of safety, watching him. When he was on screen, I kind of felt safer, which is
Yeah.
yeah, which I think probably is why I became such a Peter Cushing fan. I was trying to remember who played Lucy there. It was Carol Marsh played Lucy. I remember her dying in it. I remember, because I think Dracula comes twice. I think we see him arrive once. I think we get an indication that he's approaching on a second night, and it's the second
Ah.
he eventually turns her. And it's very, very shocking. You see her face; she looks like she's sleeping, and then you get this the bed cover being pulled over her face, without any warning. So that indicates that she's actually dead. She's not sleeping. I remember being quite shocked at that.
It's
Um,
quite stark, isn't it? It's quite a vivid image.
God, I haven't actually watched Dracula for a long time, but God, I've seen it so many times. But yes, no, very perfect in death, which is a sort of peaceful image to have.
Established that victims consciously detest being dominated by vampirism, but are unable to relinquish the practice, similar to addiction to drugs. Ultimately, death results from loss of blood, but unlike normal death, no peace manifests itself, for they enter into the fearful state of the undead. Since the death of Jonathan Harker, Count Dracula, the propagator of this unspeakable evil, has disappeared. He must be found and destroyed.
So yeah, and then the finale, the big fight between Peter Cushing and Christopher Lee. That was exciting. I remember the music,
Yeah.
and I used to reenact that with my friends. And actually, I was kind of thinking quite fondly, because we all kind of watched that film somehow. And then, I mean, we were in very early primary school, and talking about Dracula and vampires. It must have been so weird for teachers to hear us talk about blood and fangs and things like that. But yeah, we used to make up little manuals, little handbooks for ourselves, how to kill a vampire, how to find a
Oh,
vampire.
Your teacher will have just been delighted that there was such a literacy focus.
We used to draw the most sort of grotesque kind of illustrations, and there was three of us. There was myself, Craig, and Colin. Colin sadly no longer with us, but there was the three of us, and we had this thing that we would travel to Transylvania on our bikes. We were going to, openly seek out Count Dracula and destroy him
and get him.
Yeah, so that was the influence. As which was nice, really. It fired our imaginations, and it was healthy. And I don't think it was, people nowadays kind of, I think we're treated with a bit of kids' gloves around children, what they're exposed to and things like that. And I think obviously we have to be careful with young minds, but
for sure.
I think I think it was a very healthy staple diet of horror for
absolutely every child should have it.
Yes, I think so. Yes, it's fairy tale. Peter Cushing described them as fairy tales. And that's what Hammer were in that sense. So there was a sort of safeness until later on when they got a bit more risky and a bit more blood and violence and boobs and things like that.
And buxom wenches.
Yes, yeah, it got a bit risky later on to sell to the audiences as Hammer were sadly in their decline. But yeah, no, the early stuff was proper safe horror.
Yeah. Yeah, you can imagine, if you think about something like maybe Coraline or something like that, there's some really dark elements to kind of modern stuff for kids now, but actually, like you're saying, that there is an innocence there to it. It's funny that you talk your dad, sort of letting you watch it, or it being taped for you. My very, very first recollection of any horror was seeing Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Oh, of course.
And my dad putting it on.
Yeah.
Almost not quite like a punishment. My dad's very sweet, but it just being like me seeing it for the first time. I remember standing against the back of the sofa, and so I would have been teeny and just being like, I don't like it. And then, and then after that, maybe this is just in the dark recesses of my mind. I have a feeling there might have been you keep doing that and I'll put Thriller back on type
wow.
My dad was a teenager when I was a baby. Like, I had teen parents, so maybe just, not quite equipped.
That's interesting, because my parents were older. My dad was 50 when I was born. I was very much a late and perhaps unexpected turn of events, and it was my parents were older, but they still somehow they just allowed me to watch anything. I think back in that day, you did watch anything as well. I think whatever was on the telly, your parents, you watched it. There was none of this, turning it over for you to, or nowadays I think about my kids, and they're watching YouTube and things like that. They can access it anywhere. We had one TV and you watched what was on. And I think, because I've got lots of memories of shows that I wish I could even tell you what they are, because I'd love to see them again, but I've got very disturbing images from telly in the 80s. Which maybe I would like to talk about at some point during these podcasts. And if anyone listening remembers what they are, that would be amazing to tell me what these things are. But anyway, that's slightly getting off track.
Maybe we should have some kind of regression therapy. We'll get some regression therapist on to see if they can tap into that for us, see if my dad really did threaten me with Michael Jackson.
That's the live episode, isn't it? We do regression therapy.
Seance time.
And then it becomes, the podcast equivalent of Ghostwatch.
It becomes really Pulse. The next thing that I remember really terrifying me was, and again watching it with my parents, was The Lost Boys.
You're right, Marco. Michael! much, bud. Have a good time.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Mhm.
what a film. That is.
Oh, and now I'm just like, it is just sheer, hot vampire, sweaty saxophone player perfection. But that image of when you see that first reveal of Kiefer Sutherland, and they're about to attack the group of kind of they're like rockers. It's Aerosmith's Walk This Way,
Right.
and Michael doesn't participate.
Okay.
But that very first like image of David with the yellow eyes and the fangs, and I just remember even thinking about it now,
Mm.
I feel like my heart's going to stop. I remember being so terrified that I came off the chair and I sat on the floor and kind of busied myself like I had a magazine or something, and just was like, I can't see this now. I just can't.
Right.
And yeah,
Yeah.
like that just totally stayed with me, and I never slept in the dark
Wow.
ever again after that.
Wow. So it had a real impact.
Oh,
Adversely
absolutely.
on you,
And
in terms, because it's quite a, I mean, when I saw it, it was to me, it was almost like the Goonies with vampires.
yeah,
I enjoyed it on that level. I didn't really find it frightening. I think it's an amazing film. I still, to this day, I love everything about it. Even, Tim Capello's sweaty, I Still Believe performances, which I remember finding that very jarring when he's just sort of thrusting and
yeah. Somebody give that boy a t-shirt.
it's just, yeah, I remember that being like, oh, that's a really cool tune, but oh wow, he's sweaty and thrusting. And yes, I had that, yeah, but I never found it scary, but I do, I think it's, anyone that's not seen The Lost Boys, go and do it now. It's incredible.
Immediately.
Remember, you just have to kill a leader, huh? We don't know which one the leader is. I guess we'll just have to kill them all. We'll start with the little one. First come, first staked. What was that? A little vampire humor? It wasn't funny. No, don't even! Good night, bloodsucker. No!
Yeah, so it had a real kind of adverse kind of,
Mm-hmm.
fright.
I nearly set my parents' house on fire because I had a little bedside lamp
Mm.
that I would, if I wasn't asleep before my mum and dad came up to their bed, I knew I would be terrified. I knew I'd be lying in the dark and I'd be like, oh my God. So I remember putting my lamp on and putting my copy of Matilda on top of the lamp
Oh,
so you couldn't see how bright the light was, so my mum and dad wouldn't be like, put your light off, it's time to go to sleep. And then I remember one time being like, what is that smell? And there was like a brown ring on the back of my book.
lucky.
What a nut.
Wow. So that almost caused arson, really. Oh wow, God, isn't it? So,
That's a horror film right there.
yeah, gosh, yeah. I think following my sort of introduction to horror, I don't think I immediately got to see anything else that I think I played that tape to death when the Curse of Frankenstein, Dracula, double bill, it's, but I think the next one, and this is going to be quite, because I was still young, and it's going to sound quite shocking, but Bob Clark's Black Christmas.
Phil and Bob are upstairs asleep. Why?
All right. Now, I want you to do exactly what I tell you without asking any questions, okay? No questions. Now, just put the phone back on the hook, walk to the front door, and leave the house.
What's wrong?
Please, Miss Bradford, please just do as I tell you.
Okay. I'll get Phil and Bob.
No, don't do that, Jess. Jess, the caller is in the house. The calls are coming from the house. Jess! Jess, get up! And don't go up there. Don't go upstairs, Jess. Miss Bradford! Miss Bradford! Order 30. Miss Bradford?
Wow,
Yeah.
that is.
Now I've got it's. I mean, obviously, I would be too young to, and this is maybe a couple of years later. It's a kind of mid-80s showing on television. I'm sure if I looked it up, I would be able to track down when it was, but it was kind of mid-80s, and it was around Christmas time, and I remember being on television and not understanding it. Obviously, a lot of the sort of sexualized language and abuse like that wasn't really on my radar. But I remember the rocking chair in the attic and the plastic around the face.
You're Claire.
Clear, yeah, yeah.
And her dad's searching for her. Just the absolute tragedy of that film is that, that poor dad's searching for her and she's up there the whole time. It's just, it's so sad
Yeah,
and terrifying.
Poignant, but yes, it's terrifying. And I remember that last shot with the phone ringing out, and they sort of pull away from the house. And I think, does the light go on in the attic? The light.
I think it might do. We watched it for the first time now, maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I hadn't seen it before then, and I remember it finishing, and Andy and I both just kind of shuddering and being like, "Bloody hell!" It was just so. And obviously, people talk about Halloween being the first slasher, but obviously that was 4 years before, and it was so classy and just the bit where he's the guy on the phone, the killer on the phone, is talking absolute nonsense and he's getting really heightened, and then he just stops and in a completely normal voice says, "I'm going to kill you," and it's just like, oh my god, just like makes your blood run cold.
Oh, it does. It really does. God, yeah, no, you described that really well. And then the famous shot of the eye in between the crack of the doorway. It's just, yeah, no. So it was a really heavy film to have seen it, probably about 7 or 8, maybe. And it didn't scare me enough because I don't think I fully understood everything. But the fact that someone was in the house and there was a thing with the attic going on and bodies in the attic and a sense of threat within someone's own home, that was enough to. I remember sitting there, it's totally irrelevant, but I kind of remember sitting in the bay window of where we lived, kind of watching the television from afar.
Yeah, a bit distant.
From the screen, and so that was my next one, and that stayed with me. I probably didn't even know what film it was for a long time. But no, I mean, and I mean, that film's stunning, still stands up today. It's incredible, despite the disappointing sequels.
Yeah, they're not great, are they? They're really not great. The skin cookies and the kind of, the kind of attempts at girl power, but
Yeah.
it's just really badly written
Yeah. I mean, it's all very
dialogue.
Yeah, I mean, very commendable stuff, but it's not executed very well at all. There is
No.
a fan prequel on YouTube.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. I'm going to write that down.
I mean, it was filmed by fans, but it looks. I'm sure if you type it in on YouTube, Black Christmas something or Black Christmas fan film or something, it will come up. But that was pretty good. There was a sort of prequel done, and it was really, it's really professionally shot and edited, and it looks, it looks proper. That was, for me, that was more valuable than the sequels that came out.
Mm-hmm. Kind of paid more tribute to it.
Yes, absolutely.
And Bob Clark had kind of gave John Carpenter the idea for Halloween. John Carpenter had said, if you were to make a sequel, how would you do it? And Bob Clark said, I would have the killer be released or escape from the hospital he's being kept in, and he would just go on a rampage again.
Right, and that became the foundation of.
Yeah, and that became Halloween, the perfect Halloween.
You must think me a very sensitive doctor. Oh, I do have a permit.
Seems to me you're just plain scared.
Yes, I am. I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. No reason, no conscience, no understanding, and even the most rudimentary sense of life or death, of good or evil, right or wrong. I met this 6-year-old child with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. I spent 8 years trying to reach him, and then another 7 trying to keep him locked up, because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
What do we do?
He's been here once tonight. I think he'll come back. I'm going to wait for him.
I still think I should notify the radio and television.
No. If you do that, they'll see him in every street corner. They'll look for him in every house. Just tell your men to keep their mouths shut and their eyes open.
I'll check back in an hour.
Absolutely. Halloween is something else. And I can tell you exactly when I saw that. That was when I was 12. It was 1991, October 31st, 1991. And it was shown on BBC.
Oh, amazing.
That was the first time I saw it. It was a sad night for personal reasons, and I remember feeling guilty, kind of sitting, we'd had a close relative pass away that night, and it was, I remember kind of not wanting to miss it, but the sadness of this, and then obviously I was just told to go to bed and things like that, and I had television in my room, so very, very much had the sound on low, and I was kind of watching Halloween, and it was actually quite out of all the sadness of that night, because it was Halloween night in 1991, was for the family wasn't a good one, but it was that was quite a sense of warmth about it. Actually, it gave me something to distract from it. So that's when I first saw it, and I've loved it ever since. Halloween's just a masterpiece.
Oh, I could put that film on. In fact, I could probably watch that every single day.
Yeah.
And I would not tire of it. It's like a white noise film for me now. I could quite happily just have it on whilst I was doing other bits and bobs. It's just every beat of it is perfect. I just love it. And it came from my mum is still terrified of Halloween now. So my mum had the best experience growing up as a teenager. So my pops, my granddad, and my nana had a local taxi company,
Right.
and they used to make sure that all the people working late at the cinema got home. There was like a contract between the taxi
Yeah.
company and the cinema.
Yeah. Yeah.
And because of that, they got lots and lots of free tickets. So my mum was always able to get to the cinema. And she saw Halloween, and she can't even hear the music now. It scared her that much.
Yes. Yes. I mean, it must have been something else when it first came out, because I mean, apart from Black Christmas, I mean, Halloween was the initial slasher movie, and it's something, just even, just the building of tension. That how long does it take for someone to open a door when Jamie Lee Curtis is trying to get in the door and Michael Myers is very calmly stalking her from the other side?
The keys.
Oh, it is. It's just. I think I lost about 10 pounds in sweat the first time I saw it. And it's
And so nobody wants to help her either.
no, no one
Nobody
cares.
wants to help her. They're turning their living room lights off.
Absolutely.
They're not wanting involved
And
at all.
is that not just fucking real life? That is.
Yeah, yeah.
If tonight I was out and I was going to be attacked by a serial killer, there was not one person that would open their fucking door.
No. And that kid takes way too long as well.
Oh, I think
I
deliberately so. I think he's trying to get her back. Is it because he had to watch the thing or something on? He didn't want to watch the thing.
there's a brilliant podcast that I listen to. It's sadly not going anymore, and it's called Screaming Queens, and it is fantastic. And they they speak so it makes me laugh so much. One of the guys, he's got quite a thick Liverpudlian accent, and he sort of says, "I would boot that kid in the arse as soon as he opens the door because they
Where the
do
hell are you
so
been?
long."
What is that about? I've been looking after you.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a killer out here.
I know. It's just perfect, 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 perfect.
I think I
It's
saw
just
Halloween.
brilliant.
I saw Halloween 3 before I saw Halloween. And again, I think, excuse my voice, sorry. I think Halloween 3 was a video rental that someone had. Not that I was allowed, but someone had. And I remember the snakes,
Hmm.
that room. I remember the music, the jingle for Halloween.
I'll not sing it. I'll not do that to our
I'm
lovely
not going to sing
listeners.
that either. I think, and,
It'll be in their head for days.
good excuse for anyone to sit and watch Halloween 3 anyway, which is a brilliant film
So
in its own
good.
right. But yeah, I think that I saw that first. I didn't really understand connection, with the other Halloween movies because there was none really. And yeah, that was later on that I saw Halloween, and then became a massive Michael Myers obsessive.
Yeah, it's just so good, and that's what Carpenter and Deborah Hill wanted. They wanted it to become an anthology series,
That's
which I
right.
think would have been amazing
Yeah, yeah, that's
because they didn't really want the kind of ongoing night, the rest of the night he came home.
the rest of the night he came home.
Even more of the night he came home. He's
That's
still
what's going to be
going.
the tagline on Halloween too. Even more of the night he came home. That's good. I like Halloween too. I think it's good, but it's really unnecessary. I don't think there's any
Yeah.
part of it that's needed whatsoever. Because,
Yeah, they're starting to go into mean kill kind of territory there, aren't they? Like with the strongest ever scalpel that like lifts
oh
the nurse up off her feet and
yeah, and then
the shoe drops.
the hot tub
It's
murder as well.
yeah.
Burning, burning off, and
Oh
then
God.
it's just it's pretty brutal. But it's okay. I enjoy Halloween too, and but yeah, it would have been interesting had I don't know. I imagine it would be studio interference that said that
Oh,
they wanted
because
Michael.
it made so much money.
Yeah, but it would have been interesting to see it go the route that Halloween 3 did, which was initially written by Nigel Neal, our very own sci-fi writer and
Yeah.
writer, television writer.
A special man to you.
Well, yes, very much so. And for a lot of people, Nigel Neal paved the way. He changed television in Britain completely. Quite mass experiment, and even, when we watch sci-fi today, there's influences of Nigel Neal throughout various sci-fi productions that you see, and yeah, so he's left a mark. But yeah, sadly, not the most harmonious relationship between himself and John Carpenter, and it resulted in Nigel Neal asking for his name to be removed from the credits for Halloween 3, and therefore he isn't credited, but very much. From what I understand, I mean, I haven't actually managed to see the original script, but I believe it very much is similar to what we see on the film. I think there's elements of violence that Nigel Neal objected to,
Right.
therefore didn't want to be part of that. In terms of that, there's more well qualified people out there. Podcast Birdcast, which talks a lot about Nigel Neal's work and a lot more educated detail. And Andy Murray, who is the biographer of Nigel Neal, Into Unknown is the book, and it's well worth tracking down for anyone that's interested in Nigel Neal. But yes, sadly not the best relationship between Neal and Carpenter, and I think also kind of put an end to Neal being in Hollywood, really. I think Nigel Neal did have a time when he was trying to sort of crack Hollywood a little bit, but he came back and continued to work in Britain. So, but sorry, I've gone off on a tangent there, but
That's all right.
It remains quite a really good film, actually. So yeah, and Halloween 4, 5, 6, as we go on, it's just there's not much value in the other films for me. I do like Halloween 4. I like the opening, and I like some of the set pieces in Halloween 4. But beyond that, for me, it just it loses its touch.
I've got a soft spot for Halloween. Why do people call it H2O? It's Halloween 20, isn't it?
I remember someone mocking me for saying, I said, "Oh, has anyone seen H20 yet?" And they're like, "No, it's H2O." And I'm like, "What's?"
It's not. That's water.
Anyway.
Yeah. I lost my voice after seeing that film.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was.
I didn't realise it was a musical.
Only when I see it. I went to the cinema to see it, and I hadn't been feeling very well. I'd been feeling a bit kind of like sore throat, kind of cold and flu type thing, and gasped at a jump scare, and then that was it. I had tonsillitis for a week after it.
Goodness. Oh.
I know, it got me a week off school, so thank you, Jamie Lee and Josh Hartnett.
Oh yeah, it was pretty. I don't know if I've seen that since it came out.
Definitely worth a rewatch. It's just they served Laurie so much better in Halloween 20 than they did in bloody David Gordon Green's mess. Because
Really?
she's what age is she in it? I think she's
She can't be that much older than 20 years
than what we are now. Yeah. She is smoking hot in it. She's got a boyfriend who she likes to snog passionately all the time. She is a functioning alcoholic.
Yeah.
She runs this very kind of bougie private school in California, I think.
Yes.
I think so. But she gets to do that. So her and her boyfriend are out for lunch and they're enjoying a glass of wine, and he nips to the loo, and the waitress comes over and she says, "Can I get another glass of Chardonnay?" And the guy kind of looks at the half glass she already has, and she's like, "No," and she chugs that, and before he can come back, do you know? So she's absolutely got her demons.
Yeah, I forgot.
But she's, she has agency and strength, and she's not the mess that they I'm still so angry about.
Well, I get that. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to like the David Gordon Green films a lot more than I did, and I do like some things about them. I forgot about Laurie's alcoholism and H2O, or H20.
Controlling me.
Well, it's almost, yeah, but then it's quite a glossy portrayal of alcoholism.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
David Gordon Green has her drinking from a bottle in a car.
Yeah, crying and
Yeah, and
just
it's really,
really,
that's
yeah.
more real life alcoholism, I think.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's not glamorized. Alcohol is glamorized a lot, I think, in cultures, and
Absolutely, yeah.
so I think David Gordon Green got that sort of damaged Laurie a lot better in that sense. But yeah, the films were just a bit lackluster. Just not really.
There's just I've heard it talked about. In fact, I've made it a bit of a not a mission, but I have heard lots of, far more qualified people than me, you know, the Gaylords of Darkness, another fantastic podcast that isn't going anymore. They talk about it really eloquently about why it just misses the mark. There's no heart to it. We're not in. We love the girls in the first one. We absolutely love those girls, and we're with them for such a long time before anything happens to them. And that's what we love. That's why we're so invested, and we just don't get that with. They kind of talk about it as like that bro horror thing of men writing women and just not being able to kind of capture the essence of relationships and the kind of the finesse that comes with that. There was another podcast I listened to that I think it was actually Screaming Queens, and again, for them it just doesn't I'm losing words now. It just doesn't pack the same punch that the original had. But I guess it's kind of that lightning in a bottle thing, isn't it? It's like,
But how do you capture
how do you create? How do you create something, or how do you recreate something perfect?
Maybe, I don't know, did Deborah Hill have a lot to do with the
Yeah, she did. She wrote the girls because apparently John Carpenter said, I can't write girls, and they were together at the time, and that's where she stepped in, and she's kind of I think 2025 is going to be my Deborah Hill year. I want to know more about her, so I need to.
I think for me she's someone that I know about but not enough about as well, actually.
Yeah,
So we need to make a
maybe we need to do a deep dive on Deborah.
That would be nice, actually. Why not? Because she was, quite the influence on horror. And
absolutely, her legacy is far-reaching. Yes, I know.
And yeah, but left such a mark on horror. So yeah, no, I think that would be lovely to talk about. Just to get to know her more, myself. That would be nice, So yes, let's make a point of doing that.
I've got post-its everywhere, Rob.
Have you?
I'm going to be like the post-it queen.
Good, great, Emma. You're more organised than I am.
I'm not. I'm a teacher. That's all it is.
So so that, I suppose that's quite a good, introduction to horror growing up, isn't it? Really,
I think we've kind of covered. So I wrote something down now. Maybe this is different for boys, and this is probably quite a nice wee kind of chat then. So I wrote, just as I was preparing for today, that horror's always been a part of kind of who I was, and I said that it was kind of before and beyond the sleepover horror films, that kind of rite of passage.
Yes.
Where you have the sleepovers and the scary films, and none of my friends were really into them. We knew that when you went to sleepovers, you watched scary films and you got yourself all, scared, and that mass hysteria thing. But for me, that was just a wee bit in the middle. It was there long before, and it stayed long after. And obviously, that's kind of the same for you. But obviously, when you were talking about playing the games with friends and things, I'm so envious of that, because none of my friends were ever into horror, and there's not many.
Yeah, It's, I
not many
mean,
friends now who are. So I always kind of diluted it down a wee bit. Like it was quite othered, wasn't it, to
yeah,
be into horror, especially to be a girl and be into horror.
into horror.
That was
Yeah,
maybe not.
that's interesting. That not the thing to be into horror. Being a girl, I don't know. I, maybe it was easy. I mean, certainly that the three of us was kind of special. It was, it was kind of, and we all got it. We all were on the same page about it. I mean, we weren't watching, God, what was it in the 80s, just like, we weren't watching Jaws I remember going round to, Colin's house and we were watching Mystery of the Wax Museum from 1930 something.
Wow.
We weren't watching modern horror by any, and so we all kind of got it, I think. And yeah, I mean, it sort of dissipated. We kind of went our separate ways, and
But it stuck for you.
well, it stuck for me. But I mean, I think it stuck for us all. But I think we just, we all grew up, and I think you talk about sleepovers and that. I kind of experienced that. We watched horror movies on sleepovers, but there was often things like Commando wanted to be watched, whereas I had Dracula AD 1972. Does anyone want to watch this? And it was, so I still felt a little bit of that kind of, okay, right, I'm on my own here because I've brought around these fucking classics, and
Yes, these heathens are not appreciating that.
so yeah, I kind of sort of share that with you, but I think that was a special moment. As I say, it's always a bit bittersweet because Colin,
Yeah.
and he's been got nearly 20 years now gone, and it's
Wow.
just incredible. But these,
It's just
it's things happen. But yeah, no. So I kind of get that. As I was growing up and becoming a teenager, I was getting into films that were slightly not in the mainstream for the rest of us. And I think that's probably the same for you.
And what was the point where you were like, do you know what, this is something I'm just gonna keep going with. This is kind of, well, it's more than a hobby for you. It's more than just an interest.
It is, yeah. I mean, it's become that, and I've been lucky enough to, to write some things and meet some people and be part of the world in a small way, I guess. And that's been lovely. Yeah, it's never left me, and I don't think it ever will. There's a comfort that comes from it. I watch horror movies a lot of the time for comfort.
Yeah, escapism and
Yeah.
yeah.
The things that I rewatch are the comfort ones. The newer stuff, when I go and see a new horror movie, it's exciting. Is it going to be good? Is it going to be one of these classics? Hereditary was the last of these films recently that I was blown away by, and just terrified I was. I'm not often terrified by films, but Hereditary was a recent one that really, I wanted to leave the cinema in the last 40 minutes of the film, and I just thought I can't, so it's always been a comfort, and it remains so. And then there was a pivotal moment for horror for me, and I think anyone that knows me will think, oh my god, here he goes again, because I can talk endlessly about The Woman in Black on television, which is a TV adaptation, and that was the biggest horror scare I've ever had in my life, to the point that it had an adverse effect on me for months, probably approaching years, in terms of sleepless nights, having the light on at night, and just not being able to settle. It was such a shocking sequence that came out of the blue with the Woman in Black screaming like a banshee coming down over the top of someone.
Yeah.
And it was unexpected and well built up to that moment, and it was just so well executed that it scared a generation, which everyone who knows that, and we talk about a bit more about that in our first proper episode, I guess.
Yay!
So
Yes.
not bore you too much with that just now, but The Woman in Black was pivotal in terms of I changed that night, and it sounds a bit kind of hokey, sort of saying that.
I don't think so.
But it
I think
never left me, and I, and then, for a long time it wasn't seen or talked about or even written about, and that kind of annoyed me, because it's one of the best. For me, Nigel Neal's adaptation it's one of the best adaptations we've ever seen of The Woman in Black, and it's one of the best television ghost stories I've ever seen. And I think in terms of covering British horror, which we've talked about doing over this upcoming season, I think, British horror as a landmark piece of television. So yes, but it changed me and it scared me for a while. I wasn't allowed to watch horror for a long time. I was banned from watching anything to do with horror for a good couple of years. So that was probably my first unsafe experience of horror.
The big scare.
Yeah, it really frightened me. It really did.
It's terrifying. It's, yeah. Oh, but I can't wait. I cannot wait till we can unpack
Yes, well,
that's going to be a good episode, people. So
keep
your ears peeled for that.
Some insights that haven't been revealed before on that episode. So I've been doing a lot of research over the last few years, and trying to put together a book on it. So we'll see what happens with that. But certainly, we're sharing a bit more with that later on as we go into the next episode.
I can't see you! Where are you?
What happened to him, Mrs. Daly?
He was playing at the beach with his friends, and they said the tide must have caught them off guard. You've seen her, haven't you?
She was there this morning in the fire.
She's always there. You mustn't blame yourself.
Blame myself for what?
For not listening to the others, for not staying away from the house.
I don't understand.
Whenever she's been seen, on the causeway, on the marsh, in the grounds of the house, however briefly and whoever by, there has always been one sure and certain result.
Yes.
In some violent or dreadful circumstance, a child has died. So many children.
Next time on Beyond the Screen, we will be discussing The Woman in Black, from its 1983 novel by Susan Hill through to the 1989 Central Television production for ITV, directed by Herbert Wise and adapted by Nigel Neal, and then on to its 2012 Hammer Films interpretations. Join me next time. Thanks for listening. Don't have nightmares.